Welcome to the Asset Mindset Podcast. Super excited for our guest today that we've got on, Daxton Cheshire. He's going to be on
That's
here
right.
today. We're excited to have him on here. Good buddy of mine, a good family friend, known his family for a long time. So we're excited to have him on here. Benjamin, what's up, dude?
How you doing, man? I'm doing good. How are you?
What'd you do in the real estate world this last week?
So this last week, me and Jordan are actually working on raising money for an apartment complex that we mentioned in a previous episode. So that's what I've been doing, meeting with a bunch of investors, and it's kind of my first go around at raising money. So it's been fun. There's a lot to learn, but it's been good.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, good. So Daxton is a young entrepreneur. We're super excited to have him on here. He's very similar to us, very self-driven. He started his own business, like I mentioned before. Really good buddy, family friend. Grew up actually with his sister, his older sister. Went to school with her, and we've always been in touch. But recently, it's been hard because everybody moves on and starts getting married and doing their own things. And Daxton has just been blowing up on my feed with his recent business that I'm going to let him talk about. But Daxton served a 2-year mission. I believe he went to college for a little bit, and now I don't know if you're still in college, Daxton, or are you just focusing on the business right now?
So I actually finished college. I kind of rushed through it. Just got it done. Just wanted to get it over with so that I could focus on myself and what I wanted to do. Went to Weber State, got my bachelor's degree of science in professional sales. And so it's something that's pretty universal. Everybody needs sales experience. But I also learned a lot. It's a great program that they have there, and so it was really cool to go through that, and then not so much take that information and use it for someone else, but to use it selfishly for myself. It's been great. It's been good.
Nice. So that's actually the same degree I got at Weber
Oh,
State.
okay.
So I know what you mean by like
Yeah,
fast track, like
yeah.
18, 20 minutes every semester,
Oh
all
yeah.
online, just
7
cruising
classes
through.
at a time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dude, how sweet. We know each other's education.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Really cool. So Dax, I'm curious, man. I want to break into a little bit of what you have going on right now. But prior to doing so, I want to know growing up, and I mean, we knew each other, man. Like our families have been pretty close. Did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur? Or did you, I mean, like going to, in high school and then going on your mission and then going to college, did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur? Were you wanting to go into like a certain field, or what did you kind of imagine yourself doing like growing up?
Yeah. So I've always wanted, when I was younger, I always wanted to be like an inventor. I wanted to have my own product. I wanted to invent something that everyone wanted to use and stuff like that. Um, but I never got any of those ideas. I still don't to this day. And so I kind of wanted to take a piece of that, getting something that somebody wants, but then also being my own boss at it and just trying my own business and stuff. And so, um, that side of things has been good. It's been fun. I don't know that I've always thought of myself as an entrepreneur. It's just kind of how I've seen the world recently and everything. It's just like I can't see myself sitting down at a desk job and just working from 9 to 5. It's just like it's something that even right before my mission, about during my mission, and then after, I just couldn't picture myself doing that. I've tried jobs like that and stuff like that and everything, and I just get bored really quickly. so so I guess that's part of it. It's just kind of, I don't know if it's the way my brain's wired, or it's the brain that, or the way that I've developed my brain or whatever in that way, that it's just I just couldn't see myself really doing anything differently as of the
Nice.
late years. So
That's awesome. So, Daxton, what kind of entrepreneurial ventures did you have during college, and then eventually leading into what you're doing right now? If you could walk us through that.
yeah, so all through college, I was kind of just I was aiming for something that was more. in an office and stuff like that, just because I felt like that was like the more normal, the safer option, you could say. I actually started my college experience at UVU. I was going into web and app development, kind of with that invention side. I was like, I want to invent an app that everybody's going to use, but I knew what
Right.
came with that. But then I kind of realized that, like, this is really tough. After my first year, it was really tough. I got good grades in it and stuff, but it was a real struggle, and I was really pushing myself, which is good. But then I just realized, I was like, if I don't invent an app, I feel like I'm just going to be an IT guy, and I couldn't see myself doing that. And so that's where it kind of all started. And then I was like, okay, well, if I go into this professional sales degree, everybody needs sales. A lot of people do good in sales. It's kind of based off of what you do. It's kind of like you set your own bar as to how hard you're going to work. Obviously everybody has quotas and everything like that, but I like to confide in myself more than I trust to confide in other people above me. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. And so it's easier for me to challenge myself than it is to just follow what somebody tells me to do every day. So
Yeah, definitely. No, that's awesome. The sales side of thing is really exciting because you get that similar feeling to like sports. Like you grew up playing sports, right? So,
yeah.
um, like what you were saying as far as you're gonna get like your production's gonna be based off like what you're putting into it and the results and all that. It's very like parallel to sports, and so it's cool because I think a lot of people that have played sports and things like that, they find a very good home in sales or entrepreneurship because they're used to being like, hey, like my results are based on my performance and my preparation.
Yeah.
And it's very similar, right? Like you go to practice, but you got to put in time outside of practice to be able to truly perform like outstanding on the field when it matters. So that's really
Absolutely.
cool. That's neat.
It's awesome, man. So, walk us through your company and how you started it and how you got the idea and what's the current operations like in there.
Yeah. So backtracking about a couple of years ago, or at least it was the very beginning of last year, I was kind of in that boat where I was getting close to graduating, but I was like, man, I can't see myself just sitting there over the phone calling somebody to sell something. I just couldn't see it. Um, in the program, there's this um, time where you go to Top Golf and you go around to all these different businesses and stuff like that, and they're trying to like get to know you to see if you'd be a good fit in their company and vice versa and stuff like that. And so I was just sitting there at that event, and it just seemed like I was trying to be somebody that I wasn't, just in order to appear as somebody that I wasn't for this company, so that I could maybe get it in there, to make some good money and everything like that. Um, and then I was just sitting there. I was having conversations and stuff. I was like, man, I gotta do something different. I was a warehouse manager. That's all I was doing. It was pretty easy, but it was good. It wasn't really pushing me though. And I was kind of getting a little bored of it. And I was just brainstorming, like, what could I do? What could I make? What could I invent? Like I said, I've always wanted to invent something, but I was like, what could I do that people are going to need or that people want? And I was just starting to, it just kind of came to me. I was like, so there's solar, there's pest control, that people go around door to door for. And I was just trying to stay within kind of that realm of something that, like, people would see it and they're like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I know it can look good, and I want that, for this reason or that. And so I was just kind of brainstorming, and then that I just came across that idea, and then for some reason it just stuck to me, of artificial turf. It just stuck with me, and then I spent like countless hours on YouTube trying to figure out how to do it, looking up different products, different types of turf, what pile height meant, which is like the height of the blades, how high you want them and stuff like that. Like I spent tons of time researching it and trying to figure out how to do it. And I got to the point where I was like, I need to do something. Either I need to try this at least, And so at one time I was just going to go out and try to figure it out on my own. I was just going to promote for it, guess on what I would need to bid a job at, and then see, and then go from there, you know. But at the same time, I was like, if I want to build something, I don't want it to just be this crappy work that I put out there, just trying to experiment with it, you know. And so I actually reached out. I found a turf company in Utah that I was a fan of the like quality of the turf that they were selling. So I reached out to them, and I speaking of being someone that you're not, I reached out to them and told them that I was a contractor, even though I wasn't a contractor.
Hey,
And
dude, you
I
were
was like,
selling.
hey,
You were selling.
I was selling, you know. I was like, hey, what can I get for this one? Which one's your favorite and stuff like that. And then I just had a good conversation with. It was actually the owner, um, and at the end, I was like, "Look, man, like I've spent a lot of time looking into it, but I've never actually done it. Do you by chance know anybody that I could speak to or learn from?" Like essentially is all I said. And he's like, "I'm 2 steps ahead of you. We actually have a team that installs. Um, however, kind of the way that we do it is we offer you the knowledge of how to do it, but you come work for us for free." So I was like, well, crap. I'm married, you know. I'm like, okay, do I do it? But then I was like, okay, I could look at it more as like an internship. You know, I could do it for a couple months, learn kind of the ins and outs, some easy things to do, some things to avoid, and um, then just go from there. But I reached out to the owner of the installation side, and he's been doing it for seven, I think almost 10 years, honestly. I reached out to him and he's like, "Why do you want to do this?" I was like, I'm all in." I was like, I want to know how to do it." I was like, "I can promise you, outwork anybody that's there." I didn't know who it was, but I was like, "I want to learn how to do this, and I'm quitting my job to learn how to do this. So tell me what I need to do." He actually offered me a job, paid job, and so I worked with them throughout the whole season. I liked it so much, but I was also like learning throughout the whole thing. I feel like I tried to be more of like a sponge, you know, absorbing everything, um, from the business side to the how much per square foot side to actual techniques to install and everything. And then it just kind of went from there. I was open and upfront with him from the very beginning that this is what I wanted to do. I was very blessed in the sense that he kind of just took me under his wing and just showed me lots of the ins and outs and stuff. Even though he could look at me as a competitor, but I'm still buying turf from them, so he's benefiting from it too and everything like that. But um, other than that, I just kind of went for it.
Dude, that's incredible. Yeah, thanks for sharing that because I think a lot of people are super curious, like, well, how did you go from the idea to like actually having it become a tangible thing? And that's a great walkthrough. Pretty cool story of like building a very strong relationship and then o offering value, right? Because you did go and work for him, correct?
Yeah.
You offered the value, and then did you kind of let him know like, hey, I was wanting to do my own thing, or was that some a conversation you had later on, or
No, from the very beginning, the first phone call, I was like, "Look, I'm trying to start my own company." I was like, "But I
wow,
like your guys' work. I've seen pictures, I've seen videos. I know that you guys know how to install correctly." So I was like, I want to learn how to install like you guys install because I know that you do it right. I like how it looks, stuff like that. Because I don't know if you've ever looked, but there's also companies and people out there that don't do a great job. They just kind of it's quick money for them, you know, and they just go and then they leave a yard that looks very bad, you know. And so I was like, I want to know, like, if I'm gonna do this, I want to have the potential to be the best at it. You know, I don't know that I will, you know, but like I like that was my mindset, and it's just if there's any sort of advice from going from an idea to an actual tangible thing, it's just like when that idea keeps eating at you. Like, it was like every day I was like thinking about turf and watching videos about turf and everything like that, and everyone's like, "What the heck? Why are you watching those?" You know, my wife is like, "Would you put that down for 2 seconds?" You know, and it's just like it's so cool because it can look real, you know. And so I was like, to me, it was just eating at me, and it's all I could think about. And so, in that sense, like I think for anybody who's listening to this and like in any, I guess, any scope of work, if it's all you can think about and stuff like that, it's probably a good thing to maybe try it, and so
Something to go and take a chance on. Yeah, no, that's
Oh,
really
no.
good. That speaks to a lot. It speaks to me directly for sure because there's a lot of things that I just am like, I just become very like my brain is just throbbing and pulsating over ideas, and I'm like, and it's so cool that you just were like, all right, I got to go do this. Like I'm gonna just go do it because I that's just what fuels you. Like you it, you would rather like fail and not have it work out and get that thing off your mind than let
yeah,
it just bother the heck out of you. Now, obviously,
exactly.
like you didn't, like you succeeded, and that's the cool thing, right? Like, how often in life do we get so scared of these things that we become super passionate about or very courageous about, and we just let them like dissipate because we're worried about failing. But on the other side of that, like, well, what if it does work? What if
Yeah.
it does turn out? Like, what if it is a good thing? One thing I wanted to ask you, and then I'm sure Ben had a question, but how did you discover turf? I missed that. Is it something? Did you see an ad, or like when you initially like getting out of college and all that? Like, what was it that drew you initially to turf?
Yeah, so I kind of I kind of left that part out. You didn't miss it. I just left it out. So I was kind of brainstorming different ideas. I couldn't tell you any of the other ideas I had because once I had this, I was like, that's it. That's how I'm. But I was kind of just brainstorming ideas of things that I thought people were going to need within the next few years. And when I was brainstorming this, everybody's lawns were dead because there was this huge drought in Utah. Everyone's lawns are yellow. Everyone's freaking out about how much water we have. Lake Powell's going down. The Salt Lake's going down. And I was like, what is something that people could use that would maybe help with something like that? And then that's kind of how I just started looking into it. I was like, do people like put turf in their yards? And then like I started looking at people's yards and like these little sections that they would install. And then that's how I kind of did some research and found different companies that have done front yards, backyards, putting greens, dog runs, playgrounds, and stuff like that. And so I was like, dang, that can actually look good, and like it could really replace a lawn because people use like it's thousands and thousands of gallons that each household uses for sprinklers every year, and it's like, and then to me it was just like, why do we do that just to keep a lawn alive to then cut it the next week just to watch it grow again to cut it the next week, like I don't know. To me, I was just like, I feel like there's a lot of potential in this because a lot of people don't like to do that first of all, and then they also want to have that look of a green lawn, and so that's kind of where it goes, and that's why kind of our motto now at That's Turf at our company is get your Saturdays back, so that you can really do things that you like to enjoy on Saturdays rather than out mowing a lawn. So and it could still look good. You could have the best looking lawn in the
That
neighborhood, and you don't even have to work for it. So
that's awesome, dude. I honestly, I think you're a genius because like the past few years, I've been seeing turf just like more prevalent in people's neighborhoods, and so I definitely think you were ahead of the curve thinking that way. And like I myself, dude, this summer's been so stinking hot, and it's like just been killing my lawn, and I've just seeing my water bill go up every month. From trying to keep my lawn alive, and I'm just like, dude, this sucks. So I'll probably be a
No, dude,
customer here pretty soon.
Ben Ben's lawn. I don't know why he's complaining. He freaking slave labored me out the other day, dude. I come into town and I'm like, Ben, what's up, man? Let's go check out your properties. He's like, yeah, come on down. And all of a sudden I'm mowing a lawn. Like,
yeah,
I mean, good
that's
heck,
how you
get some
save money
turf
right
on
there.
that lawn, Ben.
Water bills are
Dude,
too
I
high.
do.
Can't
Well,
afford the labor.
I mean, just think about it from an investment perspective. Like on your rental properties, you pay once and then you save money for like every year on your
Yeah,
rentals.
exactly. We
Because
usually
one thing I hate is having to drive to all my rental properties and mow the lawns or hiring people to mow the lawns. It's just like another
yeah,
expense.
exactly. Typically, people who switch to turf, it's just kind of like one of those selling points. They usually see like if they have to tear out their whole lawn and everything, they usually see savings within 5 years. And so that's why I've been pushing even harder for like new homes and like new builds because then they can skip that step of even putting in a sprinkler system and even putting in sod that they're just going to take out in a few years to put in turf, and so
Oh
it's like
wow.
you see a lot of savings a lot quicker. And so I've done a few of those, but it's a lot easier work for us too because we don't have to fix a sprinkler if it breaks or whatever. We don't even have to worry about that. We just bring in our stuff. We don't have to take out the grass. It's a lot easier for them because it's a lot cheaper, and then they end up seeing savings a lot quicker too because they haven't put any money into it already.
So whenever somebody gets turf, like, is the maintenance on it like slim to none?
Slim to none. There's still a little bit. I mean, if you have pets and stuff, some of the fur is going to get caught in it. You can rake it out or whatever. That's like years down the road of build up. But it's come a long way in the sense that like the infill or the sand, or if you play football, the rubber pellets, they go in like the turf. It's like that, but it's a sand essentially. There's different colors. There's different types and stuff like that you put in for different reasons. There's pet deodorizing one, so your pet can go to the bathroom and it won't hold that
Wow.
smell. There's one that I use that's an antimicrobial, so if your pet goes to the bathroom, uh, your kid can go roll around in the grass in the same area, and it's not going to spread those germs and everything like that too. So, but then it
Wow.
also holds down the turf. It does a number of things, but it's come a long way. So it's like there actually is pet friendly turf out there and
Dang,
stuff like
that is
that.
incredible. So, Daxton, I want to transition into more or less your mindset of getting it done. I know you shared a little bit about it and about how the idea was on your mind, and we related to that. And I think a lot of people do. A lot of people have great ideas that um, they just need that, I don't know, push or maybe that extra encouragement to just say, hey, like, I believe in myself or whatever. And so I'm curious, I want to ask you this. What do you think is, if you had to just narrow it down to one or two things that hold young entrepreneurs back from buying their first rental property or starting their first business or asking that girl or guy out or whatever it is that is like on their mind that they're just like wanting to accomplish, and let's kind of try and stay specifically more or less along like entrepreneurial, because I think that there's a lot of people that do have good ideas that just need maybe that extra encouragement to do that. What would you say those one or two things are that hold them back? Or maybe even, if you don't mind sharing, what were one of those couple things that you were like, oh, this is really one
Yeah.
major risk that like is difficult for me to overcome?
Yes, I would say that the main thing, it's kind of a double-edged sword because it can really go both ways, but it's like the fear, it sounds cliche, but like the fear of what ifs. Like what if I fail at this, or what if I lose some money at this, or what if people look at me different because I don't go to work. I don't like nothing against people that do, but I just kind of look at it more as like the safe route, like taking the safe route, having a secure job, having insurance and all that stuff. It's a lot more comfortable for most people. And so having that fear of what if, it's kind of just like putting yourself into outer space and seeing what's going to happen, where you could be comfortably on Earth is kind of how I look at it. Having the fear of the what if of like what could go wrong is, I think, the thing that specifically held me back. It's like I'm young and I'm new at this too, so I'm not an expert or anything, but that's mostly what held me back is like, what if not only the business loses money, but if the business loses money, that's going to be my money and my wife's money that she's worked hard for. And so it's scary. It's really scary. But then I think what outweighed it for me is the opposite. What if? Like, what if I don't do this, and then I have to stay at this job for 10 years that I don't like my boss or whatever? Like, what if somebody else that I know has this idea and they become very successful at it, and I just sit back in the back seat and watch? Like, to me, that what if was scarier than the other what if, and so that's kind of what made me take that extra little push that I needed, along with encouragement from my awesome wife. But I think that's just kind of what it is. It's seeing which one outweighs the other. Are you more scared to fail, or are you more scared to not do what you think you should do? And I think
So
that's
being on the side of being on this being on the side of actually like accomplishing it and seeing the success side of it. Um, Let me ask you this: what if you would have failed? What I mean, what would that? You see what you're at now, and sometimes like when you're before you're at that stage, like where you're in that funk, it's so foggy. It's like you can't really make anything, make
Yeah.
sense. And so being on that side now, being past the fog, if you would have failed, would it have really put you and your wife out that much, or what? Let me just keep it very vague. What if it wouldn't have worked? Would you guys have been
Yeah.
all right? Would you still been alive? Like what would have been the result of that? Do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, luckily with a business, I mean, there's all sorts of different businesses and careers that you can go into, right? And so it's like I think for me, I was rather than putting all my marbles into something, it was kind of just like, okay, I'll buy a little bit of equipment for now and we'll work this way and we'll see how that gets us. And then from there, we'll buy more equipment and more equipment and more equipment, you know? So it's like I've kind of worked up. So if it would have failed from the get go, I would have been out maybe $1,000 because I didn't put a whole lot into it because I didn't buy a whole lot of things, you know? It's scary. I'm not like a big real estate guy yet, you know, like I don't have that where I put this 20,000 or $50,000 down payment on a house, you know, and I'm hoping that it's gonna get me all this equity and I'm hoping that it's gonna get me all this cash flow and stuff like that. You know, I can't speak for that because that's more you guys. But like as far as this one, it's like if I would have failed at this, I would have learned, okay, if I'm gonna do something else or if I'm gonna do it again, I know what I'm gonna do next time. And it's just kind of one of those things. Like I don't see myself like even if this doesn't go through for whatever reason, like if it fails or whatever, I don't see myself being like, okay, well I gave it a go. I'm gonna go work this sales desk job. You know, it's probably gonna be like, what else can I do? What's something else that people need that I could maybe try this time? You know, and so it's just kind of one of those things where the worst that's gonna happen is you might lose a little money, but you learn a lot more than that. You know, and so I think that's just kind of where I was
That's
at.
an
I was like,
awesome
that's the worst
perspective.
that I'm gonna get. So
That's cool, man. You really remind me of a book called The Lean Startup. And basically, kind of the whole premise of the book is that you want to like spend as little money as possible to test your ideas and to get them out there. So, like you started in steps, start investing a little bit of money, see how that works. You probably learned a lot, so you know how to pivot your business, and that's kind of what this book talks about is just finding ways to pivot, and then also just finding ways to learn more about your customers and more about what they want. So it's cool to see someone who's actually done that process, because I think a lot of people only talk about doing these ideas and like I said, they never act on them. But I wanted to ask you, kind of in all this in starting your business and everything, what do you think have been your biggest defeats aside from the fear that you already talked about?
biggest defeats I'd say would be kind of working with and against yourself. You know, it's hard. A lot of people think that it's just like a great life, you know, to be an entrepreneur that you can like do your own thing and stuff. But I think the biggest defeat was kind of the wake up call that it's like, regardless of what you do, you're probably going to be working 12 to 14 hours a day. You know, it's like, I was like, I don't want to work 9 to 5, you know, and then now I work 6 to 6 or whatever, 6 to 8, you know, and it's just like, but I think the biggest defeat in and of itself would just be um, just kind of the mental health side of it. Just staying, just like keeping a good mindset. You know, at the beginning, it was really hard. I got really down on myself just because things weren't going exactly as planned. Um, but I was actually, it's kind of funny. This morning I was watching, I don't know if you guys seen that quarterback show on Netflix with about Patrick Mahomes and all that, but Kirk Cousins said something. He said, you can't play the position if you don't give yourself the grace to make mistakes, you know. And so it's kind of that same thing with entrepreneurs, you know, like you can't play the position of being an entrepreneur if you don't give yourself grace to make mistakes. And so I think that's been the hardest thing. It's been rewarding, but it's also been the hardest thing to make mistakes or forget something at home and waste yours and your employees' time to go back and get it to do this. You know, you're like losing money and you're like, dang, like I wish I would have just thought about that for a second longer. And then you're just beating yourself up. You're like, we're still gonna get the job done. You know, it's like going through all these little hoops and just letting like taking the punches, you know. And I think that's kind of been the hardest thing for me is just learning to accept the things that get thrown on your path because it's definitely not going to be a smooth ride. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's actually really good that you mentioned that because I wanted to ask you a little bit about you mentioned mental health, and I think that's a huge thing for any entrepreneur. I actually was this last week. I was talking with a buddy who he works in he works with the well he works with a title company, and then he also processes loans, right? And so anyways, he used to play quarterback at Weber State, and then he transferred to U. And I was talking to him a little bit about risk and reward because he was asking me like, dude, how do like, I just I know I need to be doing something else, something more. And we were talking about him, and then him and his wife, and he was talking about quarterback brain. Right? You know about that, Daxton. Quarterback brain, right? And just like going through all your reads and just processing it, but like being able to still go and know, like, I got to make a play here, regardless of what that safety's doing. Like, I either audible or okay, I need to be aware of that, and check my progressions or whatever. But one thing that I wanted to ask you about was specifically how you keep your mental health up. I feel like often we're under this illusion of, man, you just got to go do it. Like, hey, you have a great idea, just go do it. And it's not really that simple all the time. I don't think,
Yeah.
anyways. I think that over time, and especially, I don't know, you may agree with this, but um, with your upbringing and different, whether it's school or friend groups, whatever it is, we condition our brains to do certain things or think certain ways. And it's very difficult to just do it when you're conditioned to think against that, or, oh, I got to be very reserved. Hold on. Do I have all these backup plans? So I'm curious what you do to keep your mental health up, right? I think that's a big thing for anybody that wants to be in the entrepreneurial space, wants to be in sales, or wants to just do anything like incredible with their life. They've got to learn how to keep their mental health up and condition their brain to take these chances, or maybe they're not as big chances. Maybe they're educated risks, right? But I'm curious, like, what do you do? Is it podcasts? Is it books? Is it networking? Is it events? I'm curious what you do, and what you've done to help condition your brain to be like, you know what? I'm going to go do this. Like, the fear of not seeing it through is more like detrimental to me than like not even trying. So what does that process look like for you, Daxton?
So for me, a big thing that I like to do, I like to go to the gym. It helps me release a lot of feelings and emotions and thoughts and everything like that into myself, you know. There's a lot of different ways to release those things, you know. Some people like to read, some people like to meditate and stuff like that, but to me it's just like releasing those emotions in a way that I can kind of invest it back in myself, you know. Like when I was in my other job, I kind of got to the point where I was just really uncomfortable how I looked. I don't know, but to me, I wasn't comfortable. And so I was like, I need to change something. And so I started doing that. And then that's really kind of when my whole mindset shifted of like, why don't I just go out and try this, you know? And it's just like things like that, finding something that really helps define you and really puts you in a comfortable spot. Like, I think that's the big key. To me, it's the gym. Like I mentioned, a few others of other people. Some people just like to watch TV, you know, and that's okay if you can focus on the task at hand. Um, Another thing that's kind of helped me. I had a thought. You'll probably have to cut this out. I had a thought that I was trying to go into, but I lost it. Um,
No, well, the gym, while you're thinking about that, the gym is a great
yeah.
one. Um, and, I can relate to that, not in the sense of the gym, because I went to the gym the other day and saw this kid I hadn't seen in like probably 8 years. And I was with a buddy who was huge. He's put on like 40 pounds. We used to always be the same way. He's like 40 pounds heavier than me now. And this other individual that was there was like, "Whoa, Jordan, whoa, what happened to you, man? Like, be careful. There's a breeze outside, man. I don't want you to blow away." And I'm like, Sheesh, dude. Like, talk about
Yeah.
a freaking cut right to the heart, man. Like, good to see you too, dude.
Feel salty
Yeah.
about that.
But good thing my friend that was with me was like, "Well, hold on, man. He's been training for a marathon. Cut him some slack here."
Yeah.
But the reason I bring that story up is because that's true. Like when I have been running a lot lately, and on my runs where I'm like just thinking about my run and stuff, freaking sucks. I hate it. I don't run my best at all. And honestly, I can't even like there's so much that gets into those higher mileage runs that I'm like, dude, my breathing, everything. And it's interesting. When I let my brain think about and I don't know if you do the same thing at the gym, but when I let my brain think about like how am I doing with with my entrepreneurship or how am I doing with my rentals right now or how's my marriage or I start thinking about these other things. It's so crazy. My body just goes and all of a sudden mile 4, 5, 6, mile 10, 11, 12, there's just past and I've in my brain feel like I figured out the world. I've got this huge dopamine rush when I'm done and all the endorphins are pumping. I just feel great. And I think that's a great like thing that you brought up to do. So
Daxton, I want to ask you a little bit about your business for a sec. So I'm just curious, like you talked about working with this other guy for a little bit, and then eventually you had to, I guess, break away and kind of do your own thing. If you could talk about how that transition was, and I'm also just curious, like how you're finding people and how you're making sales, whether that's like door to door or online ads
Yeah.
or just what are you doing? Kind of curious about like your operations. If you could talk to
Yeah.
that.
So the way that it went down, like I said, I was up front from the very beginning. They kind of talked about potentially having me run my own crew, but under their name. Um, and it was a thought, I went and had lunch with them. We sat down and talked about it, but it just wasn't it, for me. I just always had that idea of owning my own thing, and they're like, well, it would essentially be your own thing, but you're under us, and I was like, that to me, that's not good enough. For a lot of people, that'd be great. I was like, but that's just my mind's already set on what I want. And so that's kind of how that went down. Um, they've actually pushed me a few jobs, which has been nice. I've done some jobs where they give me a certain amount per square foot, but they supply all the materials. Done that type. It's been good. When I first started, I really just tried to attack social media with it first, um, making silly, stupid reels and before and afters and stuff. And so I did that. I still do that. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see all these reels that I'm always posting of different projects we do and stuff. I think it's a good way for customers to just kind of see the quality of work that they could get. If they like it, then they'll reach out. If they don't, then they'll go to a different company, and that's fine. Um, so I kind of attacked it with that. A lot of it has been word of mouth. Most of it has been word of mouth. And I did try. You guys know Hometown Values? I don't know if I'm supposed to mention them, but a magazine in Utah. They just send them out to every house in Utah essentially. And there's different regions you can advertise in different regions. So I was like, okay, I'll just try a crack at it for a few months in Davis County. Got quite a few jobs out of that, and so that well paid for itself. But like I mentioned, a lot of it has been word of mouth, and it's crazy how that even happens because I've had people reach out and be like, "Hey, so and so reached out to me that said that you installed for them, and they recommended me to you." And I was like, I know all my customers, and I've never installed by anybody by that name, but I'm not going to argue. And so it's just weird because I don't know how they get my number and stuff still, but it's just they keep coming in, and we have landscaping companies that have reached out that are higher end, big mansion building houses that have reached out, and we're looking into doing different stuff for them and everything, and so it's just kind of cool. One of them, actually, it's kind of a funny story on Instagram. You go through and you like other people's posts, you look up hashtags, to get your brand out there, just to kind of show that you're active on Instagram. That's kind of how um, they kind of get your brand out there a little bit more. But I was going through liking all these posts and stuff, and I came across this landscaping company. I was like, they had this design up on their post, but it wasn't something they created. It was just something that they had designed like on the computer. And there was a little grass area inside of like this balcony where they were gonna have a fire pit and stuff. And I just commented like on my Instagram page, my business. I was like, wow, that would look great with turf, with a winky face or something like that. And they actually reached out. They're like, speaking of, like, we're actually looking for a turf company to do this. And so
Wow.
they then reached out to me, and then now this coming week, I have to go look at a job that they're doing for like a 1,600-foot putting green. So
Jeez.
it's just like for a
Dude,
different
that's
job.
awesome.
But yeah, it's just like it's just weird how it just kind of comes together if you put a little bit of effort into it. So not to say everything's perfect.
Speaking of
I'm
some
still looking for more jobs and stuff, but
Speaking of some of those success stories, what would you say was one of the first like big momentum like movers for you? Like when in your business, and at what point did you feel like you hit that one monumental moment that gave you that momentum to be like, whoa, like this, I could scale this thing, or man, this is working, or how everybody kind of gets that light bulb effect.
yeah.
When was that for you, and what was?
So there was, I'd probably pinpoint it to this one. There was this job where we're doing a pretty decent sized putting green. It was probably going to be about 1,000 square feet, which I wish I could show you what that size is, but it's pretty big for a putting green, right? He ended up cutting it in half, but he had
Yeah.
called me and he's like, "Hey, so and so told me about you." He's like, "We had a contractor come out. He dug up our yard for that area." But he never showed up. We gave him a down half down, and he never showed back up to finish it. And he's like, "So we're probably gonna have to go to court for all that and everything." I just like seeing this negative experience that someone had with this contractor that just came, took out their grass, left, didn't even take it to the dump, left it on the side of their house, and then he just never showed back up. And so it's like 5 grand for this guy. All he had to do was take out some grass and leave it on someone's sidewalk. And so I don't know if whatever happened there, but I was like, people are calling me to fix stuff. I was like, that's pretty cool. And so we came in and like, I kind of lowballed it because I kind of felt bad for him. I lowballed it and I was like, I know I'm going to have leftover from this job, so I'll be able to use it here. So I won't charge you the premium, because I won't be spending as much money on it too. So we actually did that one for quite a bit less than what I normally would just because of the circumstances. But we ended up putting in this putting green on half of his yard or whatever. And like, he was so stoked once we finished it. And like his kids are always out there playing on it and everything like that. And it was just like really cool to see that, like, even though I was like a brand new company, I'd been doing it, but like I was brand new. And this guy called me up. He's like, "Hey, I need you to come fix this, please." And he's a family friend, but it was really cool to. That's kind of when I was like, "Dang, we might be onto something." Like people are realizing who does good and like who's kind of like a scam artist out here. Because unfortunately, that happens
Yeah.
quite often in an industry like this. I've realized, especially since being in it. I've gotten put back a lot because of a lot of contractors that just don't show up. They're like, "Yeah, we'll be there tonight." They don't show up even that week, and it's like, I always try to be great at communicating because I think that's what gives people comfort. I don't think people are really going to care if you can't show up the day that you told them you were, as long as you tell them, and so it's like, that's been a big thing for me. Yeah, just, that's all it is. It's just communicating. And so I think that's something that we have going on here that I think is starting to show to a lot of people. So
Nice. Daxton, what's your like kind of day-to-day role in the company? Are you the one actually doing the work, or do you like have employees that do it, or what does that look like?
yes, so I have 3 employees. They're great. Before I go into that, there's just kind of rings a bell. At one of the other companies I worked for, there was a time where the CEO sat down with all the new hires, and somebody asked him like, "What is it that like how'd you make this company become so big?" And all he said was, he's like, "I hired great people." I put great people below me. Not below me, but I hired and brought on great people, and so I think that's a big thing that has helped me. All the guys that I work with are all really good friends now. They all work together. They work really hard, and without them, I wouldn't be able to do anything that I'm doing now. But so it's great to have confidence that three people are at the job site working hard while I'm out running other errands. I do install. Um, I'm there to supervise, make sure everything's going well. If they need anything, I'll be the one that goes and gets it because I drive the company truck that has all the tools, so I have to be at the job. I have to go get the trailer and stuff. So right now, I wear a lot of hats because it's just a smaller company and we're just trying to scale things up and everything. And so I'm a lot of my guys call them side quests. I am always on side quests doing different things to get them stuff from Home Depot or go pick up the turf or if we left something at home, I have to go get that. And it's just kind of all over the place. But then when I can be there helping, I always try to help because the quicker we can get it done and done right, then the better for everybody, even the customer. So that's
What did that
kind of what it is. I'm a professional errand runner, is what I am.
what did that look like, Daxton, bringing on your first few employees? I mean, did you do that through Indeed? Was that word of mouth? Like, how did you kind of sell them on the vision um and basically find like a role for them and like a home?
Yeah. So I think the important thing, especially at least what worked for me, was finding people that I knew I could trust. So the first one that I even brought on was my brother-in-law, my wife's younger brother. He had just got back from a mission, but he worked a little bit with us last year, so he knew a little bit about how to install turf. But I was like, I need somebody that knows what they're doing that can be at the job, that can kind of be supervising for me because I'm not going to be there all the time. So that was the first one I brought on. Next one was my cousin. He actually lives down in Harriman, so he makes a trek out here, but he loves doing what we do, and so that's been a huge blessing too. And then my third employee, I was actually walking in the mall with my wife. We walked into a lid store, and I was just talking to the kid that was working there and everything, and he was asking what I do, and I was like, oh, I work in an artificial turf. We install turf, artificial turf. He's like, no way, like putting greens and stuff. I was like, yeah. He's like, are you hiring? And I was like, yeah, actually. So I took him out to lunch and stuff, and I liked him and stuff, and so he's been great too. So that one just kind of fell into my lap, but three was kind of where I wanted to start at. I don't know if we might get one more by the end of the year, but I think three is where I want to be for this year, and then just go up from there. I don't want to rush into things too fast. So
That's awesome. That's really cool. I One thing that I kind of want to start segueing into is your mindset and where you're at with the future of things. Obviously, like you said, you've got the three. You may bring on another one by the end of the year. I always like to, whenever I start things, have the end in mind, or at least an ideal ending in mind when I at my beginning. And so, what does that look like for you? Is this something that you're like, man, I would love to scale this into something I eventually sell? Is it something I'd love to scale to the point where I'm absentee and I start another business? It's something I'm super passionate about, I want to do. Is it hey, I don't even know that yet, but I want to start doing commercial projects? What does your future like look like? And have you thought about like where you want this to be within the next 5 years, 10 years, or whatever it is?
yeah, I think that's all I think about is what I want, but I haven't come to a conclusion yet. Obviously, you think of all the different things, what you can do with it if you scale it up, what you could sell it for, all that stuff. I definitely don't want it to be something that I build up too big too fast that the quality goes down. So I just would rather take my time on it, but like make sure that it's growing and getting big and getting out there. Um, I think that I also try not to think too much about selling it off too quick or how much like that. I just feel like, for me at least, maybe it's just this type of company. I just feel like I can't put all of my heart and soul into it if I know that it's just not going to be with me in the next few years. So like to me, I don't necessarily have like a time frame on when that would happen, simply for the fact that it's like, to me, as far as I'm concerned, this is going to be with me forever. So I want to build it up the right way. I want to put all my blood, sweat, and tears, and really, like what I said, my heart into it, without looking at it as just a business, because I think that's how it can really grow and become something that could help people and be a big benefit to people. Obviously, everyone's in it for the money, and everything like that, and that's kind of just how entrepreneur minds work. It's just that you're like, how am I going to make the most money, and how am I going to do it ethically? Hopefully. How am I going to do it the right way so that I can benefit myself and my family? And so that's just kind of that my mindset on it as far as that goes. And I guess we'll see where it goes. Maybe in 5-10 years, it's not here anymore. I don't know, but or maybe it's in the hands of someone else. But I would just like to keep that quality there. So maybe I'll be just an employee and installing in 10 years. I don't know.
Okay. That's a really cool perspective, man. I know a guy, and his whole goal is to sell his company in 5 years, like from the get go. And it kind of makes me think about a quote that I heard last week, that it goes something like, the person who loves to walk will go way farther than the person who's just like walking to get to a destination. So like with you actually like love what you do, and I just think your company will grow way bigger, way faster, because you actually, like you said, you're putting your heart and soul into it. So that's cool, man. That's awesome. You're doing great.
Appreciate it.
So, Daxton, I want to kind of end on this last question. I know I was talking to you on the phone the other day, and you were bragging about her and talking about what a role she's played in your life. So when she listens to this, you're gonna get some good kudos. But I'm curious, what role has your wife played in your success? I know you mentioned that she, operates a few of her own businesses, which is incredible that you guys are doing, really all these different businesses together. But I'm curious, what role has she played in the success of your business?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to keep up. I mentioned to that before. I'm just trying to. That's why I had to start this business, just to keep up with her. But um, she's really been everything. I mean, there was this time that I can think of, like during the winter. You can't really install turf during the winter unless you're doing indoor jobs. And so during the winter, I kind of have the winter off, and I was just like telling all these people, oh yeah, what are your plans to do? I was like, oh, I'm opening up my own artificial turf installation business. And I said that for like months and months and months. And she just stuck it to me. She's like, when are you actually going to start it? And so it's like October, November, December, I'm just telling these people that I'm going to do it, but I'm essentially unemployed, just telling people that I'm going to do it. She's like, when are you going to do it? And so like, beginning of January, she like sat down with me. She's like, "Are you, and when are you gonna do this? Because like we're both relying on it, And so I was like, "Freak, yeah, I need to get on it." And then like 75% of what I thought I was gonna have to do in the whole month, like I did in one night, because I just sat down and researched how to start a business, how to do this, what licenses you need, and stuff like that. And so I just sat down and did it, and it was just like that. And so um, she's really good at holding people accountable, but she's also very good at being present. So what I mean by that is, like when I get home from work, she asks me how my day was, and she really focuses on what I'm saying and what happened at work. She knows everybody by name at my company, and so she knows like the ins and outs and stuff. Like when I talk about turf, she knows, like when I talk about different processes and stuff that we do, she knows what it is. And it's just probably because I chat her ear off about it all the time, but she actually listens. And so just like that, but then also she's really good at being able to help me and also herself flip that switch where it's like, okay, we're not going to talk about business anymore. Like, let's go do this. Let's go out together, and stuff like that. And so, as far as what we were talking about before, mental health, like that has been a huge thing too, is being able to not dwell on what happened during that day or what's going to happen tomorrow, but like being present at those times. It's really hard to do, and sometimes it seems impossible. But I think that's been a huge thing for me to be able to be present with her, but then also like because she has her three jobs that she does during the day, so she has every right to come home angry and um, obsessive over different things that have happened during the day. But she tells me about it, and then we're like, okay, great. What are we gonna? Is it in our control? No. Okay, well then let's go get dinner. Something like that. But she's really been like I wouldn't be able to do anything that I've done without her, just because she's just kind of like the number one fan. I'm sure you guys know what it is, but know what it's like. But it's just having that support at all times is something that like you can't really pay money for. You can't pay a life coach to be there that much for you. You can't pay a life coach to get you to the times that you're having super hard times. Like you can't pay enough for that. And it's something that not everybody has, but I think everybody needs. If they're going to be in something like this, it's really crucial, at least for me.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. Well, Daxton, it has been awesome having you on here, man. We really appreciate you taking some time to be on here, and I'm sure the listeners are going to love to hear about your story and the ambitions you've had, and hopefully that'll inspire them. For people that want to know where to find you and where to find That's Turf, where can they do that?
I would first start out by Instagram. Just look up That's Turf, THATS Turf. Um, really, the reason I got that name is because I would show a lot of people pictures and stuff, and they're like, "Really, that's turf? Wait, that's turf?" And so I just kind of took it and ran with it and named my company after it. So that's why it's just a silly name. That's turf. You can find me on Instagram. My email just Daxton at That's Turf. You can text me. You can get my information from either of those two things very easily. So,
Awesome. Really cool. Well, Daxton, appreciate you being on here, man. Thank you again.
guys, appreciate it.
Your boss. Thanks, dude.
See you guys. Thanks.